Pokhriyal Nishank, the Union Minister of Education of Government of India, who's joining us today through a recorded message. Honorable Shri Mahendra Nath Pandey, the Union Minister of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Government of India, also joining us through a recorded message. Ladies and gentlemen and dear friends, good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to the launch of our 2020 State of the Education Report for India, which is actually the second report in a new series and focusing specifically this year on technical and vocational education and training. As Manish mentioned, my name is Eric Falt, and I'm the Director of UNESCO for India and the sub-region. We work closely with many partners and UN agencies, but you may know that UNESCO is actually the only UN agency with a mandate to cover all aspects of education, and has been entrusted globally to lead the Global Education 2030 agenda through, in particular, Sustainable Development Goal 4. And within Goal 4 on quality education, technical and vocational skills for employment, decent jobs, and entrepreneurship feature prominently. Globally, developments in technology, demographic changes, as well as shifts towards lifelong learning approaches are pushing policymakers to rethink the scope and scale of national vocational education and training systems. In India, the clarion call for skilling, upskilling, and reskilling has been issued by Prime Minister Modi himself and is backed by comprehensive national policies. India's demographic dividend, the aspirations of its youth, and skill requirements of the growing economy all hinge on a well-functioning TVET system, technical vocational education and training, for achieving an inclusive and equitable growth that will propel the country to the next phase of socio-economic development. Yet, while vocational education is steadily rising to the top of policy agendas, the capacity of systems to respond to multiple demands and to shape the future is often limited. Much more needs to be done to address challenges related to quality, relevance, acceptability, inclusion, and the ever-increasing digital divide. This is true in India, like it is true all over the world. And this year has also, it has to be pointed out, been unlike any other in recent memory. The COVID-19 pandemic has stressed health infrastructure, labor markets, and employment to a degree never seen before. But one very positive development during this tough time was the launch of India's new national education policy. It represents a landmark revision that comes after a gap of over 30 years and reimagines vocational education for a potential transformation. We therefore believe that this year's State of the Education Report for India holds special relevance as it aims to build a bridge between education and skills development systems in India. So, as I said, much has already been done in India over the last decade for the nearly 300 million youth who also form a part of a very large labor workforce. But with our report, we wanted to take a comprehensive and constructive look at the implementation of the existing policies, consider best practices, and suggest a number of concrete recommendations. So thank you once again to all of you for joining us today for this very important occasion, and we really wanted to start today's launch on a positive note by sharing the example of Arvind Kumar, a trainee from New Delhi, about his experience enrolling in a training program and his plans for the future. Please watch this very short video.
और यहाँ पे बहुत सारी चीज़ें, बहुत सारे कोर्सेस है, बट मैंने एक कोर्स चूज़ किया जिसका नाम है वेल्डिंग टेक्नीशियन लेवल 3, जो 10वीं पास है और जो 12वीं पास है। बहुत अच्छा स्कोप है सीखने के लिए। यहाँ पे बुक्स प्रोवाइड की गई, यूनिफॉर्म्स प्रोवाइड किए गए। मैंने अपना 1 रुपये भी खर्च नहीं किया, एंड आई नेवर आस्क माई पेरेंट्स टू गिव मी मनी। तो मैं बहुत खुश हूँ, और आगे मेरा स्कोप यही है कि मैं ये कोर्स करने के बाद मैं अपना खुद का बिजनेस डालना चाहूँगा। तो यूजली आपने देखा होगा कि लोग 10वीं 12वीं पास करने में छोटी मोटी नौकरी के लिए लोग घूमते फिरते होते हैं, लेकिन ये वेल्डिंग टेक्नीशियन कोर्स लेवल 3 करने के बाद जो है, मैं कम ही अमाउंट में अपना बिज़नेस स्टार्ट करने के लिए मैं बहुत मतलब मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है कि मैं कर पाऊँगा। जो भी मेरी ख्वाहिश है मैं पूरा कर लूँगा इसे। थैंक यू सो मच।
Again, this was just a short clip to show the importance of technical education and vocational training. Also, by the way, I want to mention to all participants that the images that you saw earlier on the screen have been actually used in the report. A great deal of effort went into the selection of these pictures, and in some cases, the actual capture of new images. So we hope this will give you a glimpse of the report, but more on that later. We're very proud that the 2020 State of the Education Report for India has been endorsed by both the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. A small step, but a first step towards bringing the two ministries together for better collaboration in vocational education and training. And with this, I will request my colleague Ajay to share the recorded message of Honorable Shri Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank, the Honorable Union Minister of Education for the Government of India.
State of the Education Report for India 2020, Technical and Vocational Education and Training Report यूनेस्को का लोकार्पण समारोह में उपस्थित भारत सरकार के यशस्वी मंत्री आदरणीय डॉक्टर महेंद्र नाथ पांडे जी, जो केंद्रीय मंत्री कौशल विकास और उद्यमिता को देखते हैं और जिनके मार्गदर्शन में आज पूरे भारतवर्ष में एक गतिशीलता के साथ ये काम आगे बढ़ रहा है। कार्यक्रम में उपस्थित श्री एरिक फाल्ट निदेशक और यूनेस्को के प्रतिनिधि, संपादकीय बोर्ड के सभी सदस्यगण और भागीदारों सहित सभी अधिकारी वर्ग और शिक्षा विभाग के और कौशल विभाग के सभी उपस्थित भाई और बहनों और हमारे साथ जुड़े सभी सहभागी, आप सबको मैं इस अवसर पर इसके लोकार्पण के अवसर पर मैं बहुत बधाई और शुभकामना देना चाहता हूँ। मुझे ये खुशी है कि यूनेस्को ने तकनीकी और व्यावसायिक शिक्षा तथा प्रशिक्षण पर ध्यान केंद्रित करते हुए स्टेट ऑफ द एजुकेशन रिपोर्ट फॉर इंडिया 2020 को तैयार किया है, जिसका आज लोकार्पण हुआ है। आप सब जानते हैं कि भारत ने अपनी नई शिक्षा नीति को लागू कर दिया है और ऐसे में हमारी शिक्षा नीति के प्रभावी एवं सफल क्रियान्वयन की दिशा में यह स्टेट ऑफ एजुकेशन रिपोर्ट निश्चित रूप से एक महत्वपूर्ण सुझाव एवं इनपुट देकर के हमारी प्रासंगिकता को और उपयोगी साबित करेगी। मैं उत्साहित हूँ कि यह रिपोर्ट व्यावसायिक और तकनीकी शिक्षण के साथ साथ भारत के मूर्त तथा अमूर्त सांस्कृतिक विरासत पर भी ध्यान केंद्रित करती है। मैं इसके प्रकाशन कार्य के लिए यूनेस्को नई दिल्ली को बहुत बधाई देना चाहता हूँ। उनके सभी अधिकारियों को भी मैं शुभकामना दे रहा हूँ। साथियों, आपको मालूम है कि एक स्थान पर पाश्चात्य विद्वान और साहित्यकार अनातोली फ्रांस ने लिखा था कि शिक्षा का ये मतलब नहीं है कि आपने कितना कुछ याद किया हुआ है या ये कि आप कितना जानते हैं। शिक्षा का मतलब है कि आप जो जानते हैं और जो नहीं जानते उसमें अंतर कर पाते हैं या नहीं। आज के समाज में जानने और न जानने के बीच का अंतर समाप्त करने का सबसे उपयोगी माध्यम एजुकेशनल टेक्नोलॉजी एवं वोकेशनल ट्रेनिंग है। दरअसल डिजिटल एवं वोकेशनल संसाधन बहुत सीखने की प्रक्रिया में और तमाम वृद्धि करते हैं। ये भौगोलिक और सामाजिक स्थितियों को ध्यान में रखते हुए सभी को गुणवत्तापूर्ण शिक्षा उपलब्ध कराते हैं। सच कहें तो ज्ञान का खजाना सिर्फ एक क्लिक की दूरी पर है और भारत जैसे 1.3 अरब की आबादी वाले देश में जहाँ 37% से अधिक लोग 5 से 24 वर्ष की आयु के हैं, वहाँ तकनीकी शिक्षा और व्यावसायिक कौशल का कितना और भी महत्व बढ़ जाता है, इस बात को हम जानते हैं। ऐसे में 34 वर्षों के लंबे अंतराल के बाद आई हमारी नई शिक्षा नीति ज्ञान विज्ञान अनुसंधान से जुड़े सभी पक्षों को बहुत गंभीरता के साथ संबोधित करती है। शायद यही वजह है कि इस नीति को ग्राम पंचायत से लेकर आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी तक शिक्षक से लेकर शिक्षाविदों तक, छात्र से लेकर अभिभावक तक अद्भुत स्वीकार्यता मिली है, जो 21वीं सदी के नए भारत के विजन डॉक्यूमेंट के रूप में स्थापित करती है। कोविड की महामारी और उसकी चुनौतियों के बावजूद इस चुनौती को अवसरों में तब्दील करने का जो काम हमारे देश के यशस्वी प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी की अगुवाई में हुआ है, वो भी बहुत ही अद्भुत है। जब पूरी दुनिया इस संकट को झेल रही है, इस संकट की घड़ियों से दुनिया जूझ रही है, ऐसे ही वक्त में आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के कुशल नेतृत्व में, उनके मार्गदर्शन में पूरे विश्व का सबसे बड़े परामर्श वाली भारत की राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति 2020 आई है। और निश्चित रूप में इसके माध्यम से भारत नए भविष्य की आधारशिला रख रहा है। पूरे विश्व में भारत को लेकर इतने बड़े रिफॉर्म का कोई दूसरा उदाहरण नहीं मिलता। ये पूरी दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा रिफॉर्म है। सच कहा जाए तो इस ग्लोबल वर्ल्ड में ग्लोबल माइंडसेट के साथ हमारी जो नीति है, ये भारत की नीति है, ये इंडियन है, ये इंटरनेशनल है, ये इम्पैक्टफुल है, ये इंटरैक्टिव है, ये इनोवेटिव है, इंक्लूसिव है और इक्विटी, क्वालिटी और एक्सेस की आधारशिला पर खड़ी है। अनुसंधान और नवाचार की दिशा में भी ये बहुत आगे बढ़ कर के काम करती है। नेशनल रिसर्च फाउंडेशन और नेशनल एजुकेशन टेक्नोलॉजी फोरम, इन दो के गठन से जहाँ शोध और नवाचार की संस्कृति को बहुत तेज़ी से बढ़ावा मिलेगा, वहीं मॉडर्न टेक्नोलॉजी के साथ साथ हम ऐसी मानव संपदा तैयार करेंगे जो इंटेंट, कंटेंट, पेटेंट हर दृष्टि से भारत को आत्मनिर्भर बना देगा। हम कंटेंट भी होगा, उसमें पेटेंट भी होगा और अब उसको सभी दिशाओं में शोध और अनुसंधान के क्षेत्र में, तकनीकी के क्षेत्र में, नवाचार के क्षेत्र में, गुणवत्ता और उत्कृष्टता के क्षेत्र में वो अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर का होगा। आत्मनिर्भर केवल सामाजिक और आर्थिक आत्मनिर्भरता ही नहीं होगी, बल्कि वैचारिक आत्मनिर्भरता भी होगी, जिसमें समाज का प्रत्येक तबका वैचारिक रूप से परिपक्व और आत्मनिर्भर होगा। साथियों, हमने ये तय किया है कि नई शिक्षा नीति के माध्यम से हम आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, डिज़ाइन थिंकिंग, होलिस्टिक हेल्थ, ऑर्गेनिक लिविंग, ग्लोबल सिटीजनशिप एजुकेशन, मशीन लर्निंग, डाटा साइंस, नैनो टेक्नोलॉजी, न्यूरोसाइंस, ब्लॉकचेन, डार्क मैटर जैसे भविष्य निर्धारक विषयों को चरणबद्ध तरीके से शिक्षा का हिस्सा बनाएंगे। साथ ही इन सब क्षेत्रों में बच्चे नए विशेषज्ञता हासिल करके पूरे विश्व का नए सिरे से नेतृत्व करेंगे। 2025 तक हम स्कूली और उच्च शिक्षा की प्रणाली में के माध्यम से कम 50% से भी अधिक शिक्षार्थियों को व्यावसायिक शिक्षा से जोड़ना चाहते हैं। अगले दशक में सभी माध्यमिक विद्यालय के शैक्षणिक प्रस्ताव में व्यावसायिक शिक्षा को चरणबद्ध तरीके से हम एकीकृत कर रहे हैं। लोक विद्या यानी भारत में विकसित महत्वपूर्ण व्यावसायिक ज्ञान को व्यावसायिक शिक्षा पाठ्यक्रम में हम समाहित करके विद्यार्थियों तक किस तरीके से उसको पहुंचाया जा सकता है और उनकी पूरी प्रतिभा, उनकी मेधा को स्थानीय आधार पर कैसे जोड़ा जा सकता है। और इसलिए स्कूली शिक्षा से वोकेशनल स्ट्रीम के साथ इंटर्नशिप हम लोग 6वीं कक्षा से शुरू करने का ये नई शिक्षा नीति में संकल्प लिया है। समग्र और बहुविधात्मक शिक्षा के लिए बहुआयामी शिक्षा और अनुसंधान विश्वविद्यालयों की स्थापना की जा रही है। इसका लक्ष्य पूरे भारत को बहुविधात्मक शिक्षा के उच्चतम मानकों को प्राप्त करना होगा। मित्रों, इस नीति के शुरू किए गए विभिन्न संरचनात्मक और नीतिगत बदलावों का उद्देश्य व्यावसायिक शिक्षा के प्राविधान और गुणवत्ता को बढ़ाना है। इसके लिए नीति में राष्ट्रीय पाठ्यक्रम फ्रेमवर्क, राष्ट्रीय उच्चतर शिक्षा योग्यता फ्रेमवर्क का विकास, व्यावसायिक पाठ्यक्रमों का मूल्यांकन करने के लिए स्कूल शिक्षा बोर्डों को भी मजबूत बनाया जा रहा है। साथ ही व्यावसायिक शिक्षा के लिए निर्धारित लक्ष्यों को समान, समयबद्ध और प्रभावी तरीके से प्राप्त करने के लिए शिक्षा मंत्रालय द्वारा एक राष्ट्रीय समिति का भी गठन किया जा रहा है। आज हमारे पास एक विजन है भारत को वैश्विक महाशक्ति बनाने का, और मिशन है विश्व नागरिक तैयार करने का। हमारे देश के यशस्वी प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी कहते हैं, यहाँ जहाँ एक आदर्श राष्ट्रीय ऐसा पुरुष को खड़ा करना है, वहीं विश्व के लिए महामानव भी तैयार करना है, क्योंकि हमारा देश विश्व गुरु रहा है और हमने हमेशा कहा ये तद देश प्रसूत से सकाशादग्र जन्मना स्वम चरित्रम शिक्षण पृथ्व्याम सर्वमानवा। पूरी दुनिया के लोग जिस शिक्षा को ग्रहण करने के लिए आते थे, आज ज्ञान, विज्ञान, अनुसंधान, उसको नवाचार के साथ, नए अनुसंधान के साथ आगे बढ़ाने की हम कोशिश कर रहे हैं। हम सब जानते हैं कि कल का भविष्य उन्हीं के हाथों में होगा जो तकनीकी और व्यावसायिक रूप से सक्षम होंगे, और इसीलिए एनईपी इन दोनों ही क्षेत्रों में पूरी ताकत के साथ काम कर रही है। अंतिम छोर तक तकनीकी कैसे जा सकती है, इसलिए नेशनल एजुकेशन टेक्नोलॉजी फोरम का गठन किया जा रहा है। कोई भी अंतिम छोर तक कोई भी व्यक्ति ऐसा न छूटे जिसको तकनीकी का उपयोग न करे कोई, और वहाँ से लेकर के और गांव से लेकर के और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर तक उसकी वो तकनीकी कैसे करके विकसित हो सकती है, दोनों काम करेंगे। कक्षा 8वीं से कोडिंग की पढ़ाई की शुरुआत कर भारत ने एक महत्वपूर्ण पहल की है। निश्चित रूप से भारतीय शिक्षा पद्धति में एक नए स्मार्ट वर्क फोर्स खड़ा करने की तरफ बहुत महत्वपूर्ण कदम है। आप सबको ये जानकर के खुशी होगी कि सीबीएसई ने 2019 और 20 सत्र से कक्षा 9 के छात्रों के लिए आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस को एक वैकल्पिक विषय के रूप में प्रस्तुत कर दिया है। यह वास्तव में हमारे लिए गर्व का विषय है कि ये विश्व का पहला देश होगा जो आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस स्कूली शिक्षा से पढ़ाएगा। स्कूली शिक्षा के साथ साथ हम इम्प्रिंट तथा उच्चतर आविष्कार योजना जैसे कार्यक्रमों की मदद से उच्च शिक्षा के क्षेत्र में भी उच्च गुणवत्ता वाली तकनीकी एवं व्यावसायिक शिक्षा को बढ़ावा देने की दिशा में काम कर रहे हैं और तेजी से आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। एक महत्वपूर्ण तथ्य यह भी है कि भारत ग्लोबल इनोवेशन इंडेक्स 2020 में 4 पायदानों की छलांग लगाई है और विश्व बौद्धिक संपदा संगठन के वार्षिक रैंकिंग में जो दुनिया के शीर्ष 50 ऐसे राष्ट्र हैं, उन 50 राष्ट्रों में भारत भी अपना नाम दर्ज कराता है। भारत आज एक ऐसे मोड़ पर खड़ा है जहां अपनी स्किल डेवलपमेंट और अपनी व्यावसायिकीकरण की जो नीति है उसकी मदद से प्रतिवर्ष 1 करोड़ युवाओं को प्रशिक्षित कर रहा है। और साथ ही भारत सरकार के लगभग 20 मंत्रालय टेक्निकल और वोकेशनल एजुकेशन और ट्रेनिंग के क्षेत्र में अपना महत्वपूर्ण योगदान दे रहे हैं। ये 20 के मंत्रालय पारस्परिक सहयोग की भावना से और इस दिशा में बहुत तेज़ी से काम कर रहे हैं और पांडे जी को मैं इसके लिए बहुत बधाई देना चाहता हूँ। हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी की बात मुझे याद आती है जब वो कहते हैं कि हमारे लाखों समस्याएं परंतु इसी समय हमारे पास लाखों से भी अधिक दिमाग हैं। भारत इन लाखों दिमागों और करोड़ों हाथों के साथ प्रगति की पथ पर आगे बढ़ेगा। आपको मालूम है कि हमारे देश के प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कहा है कि 21वीं सदी का जो स्वर्णिम भारत होगा वो स्वच्छ भारत होगा, सुंदर भारत होगा, समृद्ध भारत होगा, आत्मनिर्भर भारत होगा, सशक्त भारत होगा, श्रेष्ठ भारत होगा, एक भारत होगा। और उस श्रेष्ठ और एक भारत के लिए मेक इन इंडिया, डिजिटल इंडिया, स्किल इंडिया, स्टार्टअप और स्टैंडअप का रास्ता होते हुए आगे बढ़ रहा है। और जो नई शिक्षा नीति, जो राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति 2020 है, जिसको पूरे देश के अंदर आज उत्सव के रूप में जिसकी स्वीकार्यता मिली है, और हर प्रदेश इस दिशा में प्रतिस्पर्धा में है कि वो अपने प्रदेश में पहले राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति को लागू करेंगे। और आज पूरी दुनिया नई शिक्षा नीति को लेकर के आशान्वित नहीं है, वो उत्सुक है कि वो भी अपने देश में भारत की इस NEP को अपने यहाँ लागू कर सकें। और इसलिए मैं इस अवसर पर एक बार फिर स्टेट ऑफ द एजुकेशन रिपोर्ट के जो प्रकाशन जो यूनेस्को की इस टीम ने किया है, इस पूरी टीम को एक बार इस अवसर पर मैं बहुत सारी शुभकामनाएं, बधाई देता हूँ। धन्यवाद, नमस्कार।
Thank you very much. We're very grateful to the Minister for his constant support, and I want to underline the long-standing partnership with then MHRD and now MOE, Ministry of Education. Here, the Minister just reminded us that the National Education Policy embraces the Education 2030 agenda and commits to expanding vocational education considerably across India, starting from grade 6 onwards, to enable students to acquire the necessary skills for further education and training. He said that this integration of vocational education programs into mainstream education in all institutions will ensure that every student learns at least one vocation and is exposed to several more, including those involving Indian arts and artisanship, constituting an important pillar of Lokvidya. So very briefly, from our side, we commit to continue our work with the ministry to implement the national education policy, especially in the context of the launch of this report today, the various policy provisions for reimagining vocational education. And we will now move to the next speech. And I will request Ajay to please share the recorded message of Shri Mahendra Nath Pandey, the Union Minister of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship.
मुझे ये जानकर बहुत ही प्रसन्नता हुई है कि टेक्निकल एजुकेशन, वोकेशनल एंड ट्रेनिंग TVET ने वर्ष 2020 को द स्टेट ऑफ वोकेशनल एजुकेशन एंड ट्रेनिंग को 2020 की थीम के रूप में प्राथमिकता दी है। वर्ष 2014-15 में माननीय मोदी जी ने इसी बात को ध्यान में रखते हुए कौशल विकास मंत्रालय को अलग से सृजित किया और तब से लगातार सामाजिक न्याय और अच्छा जीवन और कुशल कार्यबल के साथ एक बेहतर जीवन शैली जीने की दृष्टि से लोग तैयार हों, उस पर हमारा मंत्रालय लगातार काम कर रहा है। हम इस पर लगातार इसमें मुख्य रूप से 3 बातों पर बल दे रहे हैं। एक तो एजुकेशन, शिक्षा और कौशलीकरण को समेकित करना, शिक्षण कार्य और व्यावसायिक शिक्षा को एकीकृत कर, दूसरा नियोक्ता साइटों पर शिक्षुता कार्यक्रम को सरलीकृत करते हुए अप्रेंटिसशिप को ज्यादा से ज्यादा बल देना, तीसरा सूक्ष्म लघु तथा मध्यम उद्यमों तक इसकी पहुंच को बढ़ाना। लगातार ये पहल हमारे मंत्रालय के विभिन्न कार्य प्रयत्नों और आयोजनों से जारी है। हमें प्रसन्नता है कि इसके लिए इस थीम पर यूनेस्को ने नई दिल्ली केंद्रित रूप में इसको विशेष पहल की है। मैं इस रिपोर्ट की तैयार करने वाली संपादकीय टीम को बहुत शुभकामना बधाई देता हूं और निश्चित तौर से ये जो यूनेस्को की पहल है, ये कौशलीकरण और अप्रेंटिसशिप प्रोग्राम को और बेहतर बढ़ावा देने में तथा भारत के कुशल कार्यबल का देश और विश्व स्तरीय विस्तार करने में लगातार प्रेरणा और मार्गदर्शन और सहायता का कार्य करेगी। और इसके साथ साथ जो 2030 तक का सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल, सतत विकास का जो लक्ष्य है, उसको प्राप्त करने में जो कुशल कार्यबल की अत्यंत आवश्यक अपरिहार्यता है, उसमें भारत की बड़ी युवा शक्ति को वर्ल्ड की स्किल फोर्स बनाने के बड़े लक्ष्यों के साथ हम सब आगे बढ़ रहे हैं और आज के परिप्रेक्ष्य में निश्चित तौर से इसमें सफलता मिलेगी। उसमें भी यूनेस्को की पहल और उसकी ये संपादकीय टीम का कार्य हम सबको निरंतर प्रेरक और सहायक रहेगा। सभी को शुभकामना, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, नमस्कार।
Thank you so much, Minister, for your kind words, and we certainly accept your best wishes for this launch. Indeed, the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship has made tremendous progress since it was instituted in 2014. The Ministry's continuous efforts to expand the provision of technical and vocational training to enable social justice and livelihoods through providing quality lifelong learning opportunities for all is very commendable, and we make note of the Ministry's vision comprising of three key elements. One is to promote the integration of skilling and education. Two is to enhance the focus on work-based learning and apprenticeship programs, and to expand the skills development programs to micro, small, and medium enterprises. We are, of course, ready to work closely with the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. Following the endorsement of the two ministers, I believe it's time to unveil our flagship publication of the year, the State of the Education Report for India 2020. We have to do it virtually, like everything it seems in 2020. So let's see if we can do it through this short animation. Ajay, can you please play the animation? Thank you very much, Ajay. As you can see, vocational education first is UNESCO's motto for Tibet in India. And at its core lies the aspiration to empower each individual in the country to realize their full potential and become a part of a trained and skilled national future. The report is more than 100 pages. It doesn't look exactly the way you saw it on the animation, and you will be able to access it online. While talking of aspirations, we will begin to take a look at the various recommendations of the report, and we will start with the first recommendation that the report proposes about taking into consideration the aspirations of the most important stakeholders, the learners. And to talk about this particular recommendation, I would like to invite our colleague Terry Durnian, the Chief of Education at UNICEF India, to tell us briefly about the support measures for learners outlined in the report and the work also that our sister UN agency, UNICEF, is doing in this regard. We always make a point of working closely together. Over to you, Terry.
Thank you very much. And congratulations on the launch of the report today. I think this is a very important step forward. And presents very good recommendations to inform the subsector in education. I'm very pleased to look at the recommendation 1 because I think it really focuses on who are we talking about and puts the learner at the center. I mean, this whole report is focusing on learners. How can we best empower and enable them to gain the skills and the knowledge to be successful and move forward in life? And really, for me, that's the whole center of education, but not built on the perceptions of what a learner should be, but we should be looking at what the learner wants to do or who they want to be, and not have preconceived ideas of who they should be and what they should do. And learning programs, including TVET, need to adapt to learners rather than learners adapting to the programs. Learners require the skills and support to exercise choices, building up capacities, fulfilling their aspirations. And these linkages are so important. We cannot continue to go blindly in and provide program to program unless we're linking it to learners' capacities, their interests, but also their aspirations. Because really from the report we're looking at, it's a new world. We need to look at the skills, the transferable skills, as much as job-specific skills, learned by doing. For me, sometimes it's less about the vocation, but the skills in which learners gain and apply. Because I think we need to move past, even in mainstream education, shifting the focus on memorization and knowledge to application, doing. Learners should have multiple access to multiple pathways. It can no longer be a linear route. That's changed. I think with COVID, we've seen it more and more that there needs to be vertical, horizontal mobility for learners, for the young and for the youth. And they need to have the necessary bridges worked out to move from learning opportunities, training opportunities, and work opportunities. And I think one of the important contributions we're looking at is around the area of career guidance, and where students or learners are supported to gain information, but more than that, it's really to gain the skills to look at what is available, to know where to look, analyze the information, process it, evaluate, explore, question, making decisions. I think we need to shift away from simply assuming students will move from point A to point B, and that's their end of their professional or their work life. And we need to focus more on what their aspirations, what their desires, their aptitudes in moving forward. And that's the importance of empowering them to be able to make choices, informed choices of where to go forward from. And I think the NEP does this as well by focusing on vocational education. I think, as Eric mentioned, and the minister as well, from 6 upward. But it cannot be seen as vocational versus mainstream education anymore. It's not one or the other, it needs to be both. Both offer important skills and knowledge that all learners need in terms of competing, succeeding in today's economy. I think if you look at the employment, education, and training opportunities, there needs to be diverse opportunities, and learners need the skills and the aptitudes to make choices that's best for them based on the available knowledge. And currently with this career guidance portal, states it's rolled out 10 states. And I mean, UNICEF supports because really it's a state initiative, each adapted to the state context, state needs. And that's what needs to happen. We need to adapt to the students, what they need, and provide choices and opportunities. And I think this is what this report will do as well, provide similar things to this sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Terry, for your intervention. We're certainly looking forward to strengthening further our collaboration in the TVET sector with our friends and colleagues from UNICEF. The quality and the effectiveness of vocational education and training programs is directly proportional to the motivation and commitment of teachers, trainers, and assessors. And to talk about this specific issue, I would like to give the floor immediately to my friend, Dr. Subbarao Lapavulari, Secretary to the Vice President of India, who's had a long and distinguished career in India and internationally. He's been a great supporter of UNESCO New Delhi and was part of the team guiding this year's report, but also last year's State of the Education report as well. Over to you. You need to activate the sound.
Okay. Good afternoon, Eric and colleagues and all the viewers. I'm happy to be here virtually with all of you. It would have been wonderful to be physically present in a hall and sharing all this wonderful work which UNESCO has prepared under your guidance, Eric. But we're in 2020, so we are in a different format altogether. But nevertheless, let me say that I'm very happy to be a part of this great team which has produced this report. And I appreciate the work that UNESCO New Delhi is carrying out in developing the State of the Education reports, this one being on Tibet, and it's rightfully called Vocational Education First. One of the key themes that this report advocates is to create an appropriate ecosystem for all teachers and assessors. Actually, even the vision statement of the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship is to create an ecosystem of empowerment by skilling on a large scale at speed with high standards. So there is scale, there is speed and standards. And to promote a culture of innovation-based entrepreneurship, which can generate wealth and employment so as to ensure sustainable livelihoods for all citizens in the country. So this is in line with what we in this report have also been observing. And to create this ecosystem, I think the most important thing is to look at the induction training of trainers and assessors, their terms of recruitment and deployment, working conditions and career prospects. All these must be given due attention so that these become attractive and aspirational professions. The report shares that teachers in schools must also be supported in a similar way. With the National Education Policy 2020, with its recommendation that there should be a greater use of shorter duration training courses in pedagogy to train persons with industry experience, artisans, and other experts with field experience, serving as teachers or trainers of vocational subjects. This aspect gains greater salience. Hence, this possibility of introducing even master level teacher preparation courses in vocational disciplines and regular skill universities may help to address the needs of teachers. Further, I think we should also think of vocational education being an ongoing and sustained activity. It would be preferable in the longer term to invite trained school teachers to volunteer to teach vocational subjects. Teachers can be trained through either regular in-service training programs or through training of trainers, TOT programs, of the NSDC and the Pandit Sundarlal Sharma Central Institute of Vocational Education, both of which need to be further strengthened, and I think greater use of online facilities must be also thought of. Finally, I would say that it's very important to note that the career prospects of teachers, trainers, and assessors, their terms of recruitment and working conditions need to be given careful attention. Unless teaching becomes an attractive and aspirational profession, the quality of TVET programs will not attain the desired high standards. We are at a critical point where all governments need to consider requiring all prospective employers to provide teachers, trainers with standardized wages, raises, and benefits. So I think it's the little comprehensive kind of an approach which the report is recommending, and it should be taken serious note of by all the state governments and also by the central government and other stakeholders in the process. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you very much. We also made a conscious effort in the report to capture the perspective of the traders and teachers who are responsible for transforming the lives of the youth, even in times of pandemic. So let us hear again very quickly from one such trainer based in New Delhi. Ajay, please play the video.
In very short duration, we train maximum number of students. एंड हमारी ट्रेनिंग के थ्रू वो उनकी लाइफ में कुछ ना कुछ चेंज आता है, टर्निंग पॉइंट आता है. जो ड्यूरेशन है कोर्स की बहुत कम है, बहुत कम समय में बहुत जल्दी वो प्लेस हो जाते हैं और रिटेन रहते हैं लॉन्ग टर्म के लिए. बट मैंने एमबीए को पढ़ाया भी है, बट जो मैंने वहाँ 3 साल एक ही बैच को 3 साल दिया है वो मैं यहाँ पे जल्दी जल्दी दे पाती हूँ और मैक्सिमम बैचेस को. चैलेंजिंग ये पार्ट रहा कि हर किसी के लिए वो नेटवर्क में आना बहुत मुश्किल था. पढ़ा ही उन बच्चों को रहे जिनके पास वो फैसिलिटीज़ ही नहीं है. कोविड सबके लिए चैलेंजिंग था कि वो बेचारे रिचार्ज भी नहीं कर पा रहे थे नेटवर्क को अपने. अभी भी कुछ ऐसी जगह हैं जहाँ पे ये शॉर्ट टर्म ड्यूरेशन कोर्स या वोकेशनल ट्रेनिंग अभी भी नहीं पहुँच पाई है. तो वहाँ पे अभी भी चैलेंजिंग है. वहाँ पे या तो फैसिलिटीज़ नहीं है, यहाँ पे वहाँ पे इतने ट्रेनर्स अवेलेबल नहीं हैं, उनके पास इतने इंग्लिश की बहुत ज़्यादा दिक्कत है, टेक्निकल दिक्कत है, सिस्टम्स वो बच्चों को नहीं आते हैं यूज़ करने. तो वहाँ पे भी जाना चाहिए.
In the fast changing world of work, workers must be ready to not only improve their existing occupations, but also to be flexible, to change occupations and constantly learn new skills. It has become exceedingly evident in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, where many essential services have to be delivered by frontline workers, and rapid upskilling is essential. So let's see here a positive example of an initiative by McKinsey Generations, supported by UNESCO New Delhi, that conducted online upskilling of nurses to prepare them to effectively care for COVID patients, but also care for themselves. In the last 5 months, over 100,000 nurses have enrolled and benefited from this program across India. And I request my colleague Ajay to please play the recording.
We got frightened. We were lacking much knowledge regarding this pandemic disease. We were in need of how we need to take care of ourselves at the same time precious.
Training is completely based on practical knowledge.
Which comprise of all the aspects of COVID-19.
Presentation were interesting.
Vast reference materials, discussions with experts are immensely helpful.
The questions are very helpful. By that, we can judge ourselves that how much we understand about the topic.
Good slides and videos that kept us all engaged.
Particularly the readouts and videos of each module.
कोर्स करने के बाद में मुझे एक सर्टिफिकेट भी मिला जिससे मुझे बहुत खुशी हुई.
It was very useful to get awareness about COVID-19 pandemic management.
Our knowledge regarding COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-19 have been improved to a different level.
I really enjoyed the course with practical tools.
पेशेंट को मुझे कैसे हैंडल करना है और सेफ्टी कैसे करनी है अपनी और पेशेंट को कैसे बचाना है इस प्रॉब्लम से. We have got much idea in a better way regarding infection prevention and control measures.
We learn about
surface cleaning, how to treat respiratory cases, personal protective equipment, how to wear and how to remove this one.
And caring of self.
Completed online course in one day time.
Knowledge may be improvement हुआ.
The outcome is that no one of our hospital staffs have been found COVID positive.
Such an outstanding course.
Excellent and pure knowledge transferring.
It was very informative.
Very beneficial.
We are involving all our nursing officers to learn this course for getting clear idea.
The course really helped us to understand and to fight against COVID-19.
GMR Varalakshmi Care Hospital achieved 100% of participation of nursing staff for all departments and certified within 4 to 5 days of introduction of this training.
मैं भी चाहती हूँ कि और भी स्टाफ नर्स ये सब करें.
All nurses need to attend this course so that we can equip ourselves and our knowledge can be broadened.
Thank you. And now I would like to invite the first author of the report, Ms. Lina Chandran Madhya, Senior Fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, and who's worked tirelessly on the report for the past many months to talk about the next recommendation, which emphasizes the importance of constant and lifelong skill upgradation. But actually, before you talk about the recommendation, Lina, perhaps you could also explain briefly on behalf of the team the complexity of preparing this report. Over to you, Lina.
Thank you so much, Eric. I also want to thank you for the opportunity for preparing this report, because it's so timely. It's an incredibly timely report. It has come just 4 months after the NEP, when people had read the NEP and were wondering about how to go about implementing what the NEP said it wanted to do, which is to integrate vocational education into both school and higher education. And since I had the privilege of writing the NEP, the draft NEP, I was very keenly aware of the challenges, and I got first-hand experience of that. Because, you know, as an academic, you're not that familiar with economic concerns and the labor markets and the skill gaps that need to be filled and so on. And so even where to look for research data, what is the main literature to read, which are the reliable sources, I had problems with all of those, actually. And of course, luckily, my colleague Neela was much more familiar with the skill development sector, so she had some knowledge. But the pandemic actually also exacerbated our difficulties a lot. There was a complete cancellation of visits. And most people were very, very helpful. They gave us time to talk about, what they knew, but they were not able to give us follow-up meetings or deliver documents that they promised, because many times they were not able to go to their offices and access them and so on. So, the whole, the challenge of getting information for the report was pretty complex, and the challenge of understanding the language used by the skill development sector was another difficulty. What we've tried to do here is to orient the report towards academia, because what the NEP does is bring into the fold of TVET providers, schools, colleges, and universities, and they need to understand and be able to answer questions like, can we do this at all? Is it possible? It looks like a huge task, very difficult. And also, so the report has tried to indicate some directions, and hopefully this will be the beginning of a dialogue that we can take forward together. Coming to the recommendation on lifelong learning, upskilling, reskilling, the pandemic has underlined the need for reskilling of all the migrant workers. We don't even need to argue for that. The lifelong learning was pretty well understood, I think, because even as a PhD student in the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, there used to be continuing education programs there, but they are very small. They didn't reach enough number of people, not enough people were aware of them. And so what the policy is recommending is two things. One is that we need to create a huge bank of courses that lead to robust jobs. That is, courses that are related to, the Industry 4.0, AI, machine learning, and then also to sustainability, greening, and so on, greening TVET. So those kinds of courses which lead to robust jobs are the ones that need to be grown. So we need banks for them. Some of it has already started. For example, the NASSCOM Future Skills Initiative is something like that. NSDC has an e-skilling portal where there are a lot of, there's a bank of courses slowly getting created. So, but academia can contribute to such courses too, particularly engineering colleges and so on. So we would like to see more such courses becoming available for lifelong learning for lots of people. The NEP has done something very, very interesting, which is to suggest that there should be an academic bank of credits in which the credits earned by everybody, every individual, is stored and can be strung together towards higher degrees. What this means, and if this is adopted in the skill development sector, what this means is that students can gather certificate courses of 4 months each and string them together into diplomas and advanced diplomas and so on, which will be a major step forward. So I think that, the skill development sector should either partner with Ministry of Education to develop the academic bank of credits jointly so that it's interoperable, or have a separate skills card which tracks the skilling credits earned by everyone, which will then allow them to use it also for lifelong learning. And of course, for informal workers, you first need to give them insight into the gaps that are there in their skills. And of course, the RPL mechanism can work towards that. I'm sure other speakers will speak about it, so I will not say any more. I will stop here for now. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you so much, Lina. Moving to our next theme, inclusion, which in all forms is a UNESCO priority. It may be evident already from the photographs and videos that we took great care of the gender dimension and the research and illustration of the report, and I invite you to look at it in the report, even though, well, today, yes, our panel is not representative of this effort. We have more men than women, but I can assure you that the gender dimension of the report was a very, very important one. And I would like to give the floor to Omar Diop, Chief of Education at UNESCO New Delhi, to talk about the next recommendation.
Thank you, Eric. Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to those connected from international countries. I must say that I'm delighted to share our annual report with the public. The past year has been a great learning lesson for all of us who have been involved in developing the State of the Education report on TVET. Today, I would like to specially bring everybody's attention towards the inclusion aspect in the TVET sector. Women and youth in rural areas who are unemployed or self-employed or just working for very depressed wages due to lack of training, they continue to face daily challenges in their lives and need to be trained to enable them to earn better livelihood near their homes, of course. Through this report, we have conveyed that they must also be assisted with certification of their skills through recognition of prior learning mechanisms. To familiarize everyone on recognition of prior learning, it is a process that recognizes the skills you have gained through prior study, including formal, non-formal, or informal learning, or previous work experience or volunteer work. Thus, the facilities of school complexes, the school buildings, could also be used for the benefit of the local communities by providing vocational training for out-of-school youth and adults, especially women, after the school hours, of course. It has also been reported that informal workers account for over 90% of the Indian workforce. The recognition of prior learning mechanism for certification of informal learning and introduction of innovative models of work-based learning can be good ways of providing TVET to this group. The participation of women in the labor force is very low, just under 26%, and women also face significant income inequality. Furthermore, the persons living with disabilities, including children with disabilities, have additional difficulties finding livelihood opportunities. Children with disabilities must also be provided with training that matches their aptitudes and special abilities. Since both persons with disabilities and children with disabilities can benefit greatly from opportunities for online training, all existing online courses need to be adapted for their use. Future digital courses, course materials must be required to comply with standards that ensure access and usability by this group. Most of the training that workers in the informal sector receive are through unpaid or paid apprenticeship, mentorship, or other forms of work-based learning, such as shadowing or team-based learning. A major push for designing appropriate work-based learning schemes that benefit disadvantaged learners in the informal sector is urgently needed. Finally, in our understanding, if the weaknesses in the planning and delivery of TVET highlighted by the pandemic could be addressed during this period, then a better, more inclusive system for TVET provision could be created to help reach more of the most vulnerable groups. Thank you, and I hope all of you find this report useful.
Thank you very much, Omar. Before we go any further, I'd like to focus a bit more on this topic, because when we talk of inclusive access in TVET, we must not forget the informal workers that form a vast majority of the workforce in India, and to ensure that we're doing all we can to ensure that they are not left behind. ILO, our sister UN agency, does a lot of work in this area. And I would like to invite Gabriel Bordado, Skills and Employment Specialist of the Decent Work Technical Team at ILO South Asia, to talk about the challenge of expanding training and apprenticeship programs for informal workers. I know he will also highlight some of the recent work done by ILO in this regard. Gabriel?
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. Congratulations to UNESCO for the timely release of the 2020 current state of education, particularly on the TVET sector. Before responding to your question about the challenges on the implementation of apprenticeship for the informal sector, let me just first focus on why is there an increasing apprenticeship. Why are there increasing focus on apprenticeship again, despite the fact that apprenticeship has been with us for more than 100 years now? Now, basically, one of the key, based on the studies that we do have in collaboration with UNESCO, UNICEF, and development financing partners like ADB and World Bank, is that this really is a key entry in terms of promoting youth employment. I mean, there are a lot as a percentage of people in the youth sector that are employed. So this is one way of bringing in them, providing them apprenticeship, or bringing in them in the apprenticeship program. The second point that why apprenticeship is increasing, I mean the focus on apprenticeship is increasing, is that this is the easiest way to match skills with the fast changing labor market needs. Now, you know, the future of work, which the ILO released in 2019, says that one entry point in terms of the fast changing labor market is to have a rapid skills delivery, and one of which the apprenticeship. The third point is that it reduces the cost of training. You don't need to set up training institution. You set up it in the facility of the enterprise. And lastly, that really looks at promoting productivity, competitiveness of the enterprise and economy. So these are basically the positive or the plus factor for having apprenticeship. Now, going back to your issue and looking at India specifically, there are three challenges, interrelated challenges that is really need to be addressed. The first one is that the apprenticeship program of India now really focus on small enterprises with employees 5 and above. But if you look at the informal sector, most of them are in the micro enterprises that really have less than 5 employees. So if you look at that, we can really bring in informal sector. We can even bring the micro enterprises because of this policy of the government that we need to concentrate with 5 or more employees. The second point or the challenge that we need to really address is capacity and capability of the micro enterprise. Meaning when you say capacity, we need to train the master craftsman to raise their competencies to the international standard so that they can teach to the apprentice what really are the standards that are in demand for the industry. And along with this is the capability. We need to upgrade some sort of provide intervention in upgrading the facilities of the micro enterprises. So this is capacity. When you have capacity there, these are the soft skills of the master craftsman, and really looking at upgrading the capability of the enterprise person, meaning provide some updated equipment, tools, where they can use in terms of that. And the third one really is an effect of the COVID pandemic. We can really look now at a face-to-face training, bringing in apprentice down at the enterprise. So there's a need to really have, for the government, for the employers, to have a joint some sort of collaboration in having a flexible delivery system, meaning you can train apprentice online on some competencies and go to the shop or to the workplace or the enterprise on the skills that are really in need for a face-to-face. So this probably government can really have to have a policy on flexible delivery system. Going back to what ILO is working now. Now, ILO is really looking at developing innovative global products. Recently, we developed and launched the Volume 1 for policymakers for developing apprenticeship system. And the second one is the Volume 2 for practitioners for designing, implementing, and evaluating the apprenticeship programs. These are the two. And other tools and standards and researches that we have is that we do have global researches on the effectiveness of apprenticeship from African region, Southeast Asia, Europe, Latin America, and other regions that really looks at what are the success indicators of apprenticeship. And lastly, what's coming up now when we talk about apprenticeship? There is now not really a plan, a scheduled development of the International Labor Standard for apprenticeship, which will start discussing this next year, 2021, in the International Labor Conference, which normally is held during the month of June. So they will start the discussion on this, and eventually and hopefully by year 2022, we do have International Labor Standard for apprenticeship. Now we are also looking at higher level apprenticeship, meaning we don't really focus now on the youth, because when we talk of apprenticeship, we're trying to look at the youth population. But when we talk of higher apprenticeships, maybe we can bring in those who are affected by the 4.0, affected by this COVID pandemic, so that they can have some sort of a training towards the lifelong learning system. Now we also have this one point, which it's a project funded by Flanders government that really looks at modernizing apprenticeship. It has targeted 4 countries globally, one of which is India, the other one is from Europe, third one is from Latin America, and the fourth one is in Africa. So these are the four countries that would really, it has started last July, and the objective of this is to have a good practice documentation for India and other 4 countries in the region. Then from there, develop a global recommendation on how to modernize apprenticeship. That's it.
Okay.
Over.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gabriel. I mean, we've seen altogether that the pandemic-induced lockdown in countries across the world and the consequent move towards online education and work from home has underlined the importance of digital Tibet. The lockdown has also brought into focus the sharp digital divide that still exists in India, like in a lot of other places, with regard to access to both the internet and devices suitable for learning and producing content. This is an immediate priority. And to delve deeper into how a digital transformation for Tibet could be achieved in India, I will now turn to Matthew Joseph, the country director of the American India Foundation, AIF. I want to say again and again that our report has benefited immensely from the technical and financial support of AIF, and we are indeed grateful for its commitment to improve livelihoods through skills development. So over to you, Matthew, to talk in particular about recommendation 5.
Thank you, Eric. It's been an honor for AIF to collaborate with UNESCO on this important report. Coming to this Tibet recommendation number 5, which is to massively expand the digitization of vocational education and training. In the post-COVID world, digitization is the need for survival. It is no more a choice, it is essential. It's become the go-to model for delivering skilling, making vocational training geography agnostic. This is the most appropriate time when the entire ecosystem needs to come together, and perhaps the right time for Skill India and Digital India to integrate and leverage India's large broadband base. When the COVID pandemic hit, like many others who are supporting skilling and livelihoods programs, at AIF, we too felt it was a shock coming in, and we had to go without a playbook. And digitization definitely was the solution that we took on quite early. We transitioned all our vocational training to the virtual mode. Entire training delivery was through digitization. But what we found was that the digital gap, the infrastructural gap at the trainees' side became a challenge. And what we did was at least support them with the use of some infrastructure like OTG cables and keyboards that could be attached to the phones that the trainees could use from their home. This allowed them to use their smartphones like a mini computer where they practice keyboard skills very easily. AIF has also partnered with NSDC to train about 100,000 youth over the digital platform eSkill India over the next 1 year. We also partnered with the Wadhwani Foundation and the IBM Skills Build to leverage digital skills capacities to benefit beneficiaries across locations. Some of the other innovations that we have brought out were a skill studio where different trainers can come in and record their classes, and which can be broadcast across various training platforms in multiple languages. And a program called Enabler, which is a internet-based livelihoods rehabilitation, advancing AIF's skilling programs through digital means. So there are so many different sorts of experimentation that happened over the last 6 months, and the different models have come out. How to we have almost, many organizations have figured out how digitization can be done and how it can be used in skilling and trainings. But what the need now is to expand it. So it's almost, it's easy to expand in urban areas because infrastructure, internet, all that is easily available, and most organizations are working in the urban space. To really expand it, we now need to go rural. We need to make sure that training facilities or training capacities that are offered at even the panchayat level. You can't expect a person from rural India to come into an urban area for accessing training. Digitization being region agnostic, this could be the most beneficial, most benefit to people who are in remote areas, as well as people from the Northeast for whom gaining skills has been a challenge. That will be our priority, and we look forward to working on how to expand skilling through digitization across India, particularly the rural areas. Thank you, Eric. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's shift gears a bit and focus on culture, heritage, and livelihoods, because that was perhaps one of the discoveries of the report. We all know, of course, that India's vast reserves of tangible and intangible cultural heritage include several UNESCO World Heritage sites and a very wide variety of art and craft, but their preservation and promotion can support many more jobs than they do at present. That's what we saw after studying and preparing for this report. UNESCO, of course, is uniquely positioned to bring the educational and cultural approaches together to make this happen. And to talk more about this particular recommendation, I would like to give the floor to the other author of this report, Professor Neela Dabir, Dean of the School of Vocational Education at TIS. Neela, please tell us how the report proposes to link livelihoods with preservation of heritage.
Thank you, Eric. I also take this opportunity to thank the UNESCO team as well as the editorial board for supporting us throughout writing of this report and giving us this opportunity to explore the whole panorama of TVET in India. Though I have been in this field for last 7 years, but it was mainly with the higher education sector, this report gave me an opportunity to get into all the sectors from school to non-formal to all other sectors which I have not been familiar with. So thank you for this opportunity. So I'm going to talk about one of the important policy recommendations of this report, which highlights the importance of supporting local communities in generating livelihoods by capitalizing on India's cultural heritage. We all are proud of India's vast reserves of tangible and intangible cultural heritage. These include several UNESCO heritage sites and many other sites which are ancient and can be very good sites for tourism also. Also, it includes art and craft. That is, again, we have a rich heritage in our country. So the preservation and promotion can support many more jobs than it is doing today, because this sector is somehow not been touched much by the vocational training institutes and vocational training programs so far. So a multi-pronged approach to the preparation of adequately trained workforce for this sector is the need of the hour. And it can start with creation of a sector skill council, probably, culture, because there is no sector skill council for this sector. And this SSC can help in creating appropriate TVET courses for training the necessary manpower. Each aspect of the tangible heritage sites needs trained manpower for its preservation and promotion. For example, from their history, the art and craft of preserving the relics, protecting them from erosion and miscreants, to their presentation to the tourists who come to visit these sites. Everywhere we need different types of trained personnel, and this can only be done by carefully designed courses to train the local youth to take up jobs. Innovative financial models also needs to be worked out so that these heritage sites can be maintained sustainably through the income that they make by tourism. So this is very important for India to take care of, because otherwise we will not be able to preserve our rich heritage of cultural sites. Most of the other part of his this whole recommendation is about the intangible heritage. So the most of the art and craft from India's intangible cultural heritage are created in family-based enterprises and many other small and micro enterprises where these workers are engaged. These are all concentrated in many clusters of artisans, and they are all trained informally by the family, in the family or other work-based trainings. These enterprises are not run professionally and therefore cannot get larger world market for their products. So these enterprises can benefit very well if we have proper training programs for other aspects of business, such as financing, sourcing proper raw material, designing, marketing, all sorts of e-commerce, technology, and many more. So such training can enable these workers engaged in this art and craft businesses to reach larger markets as well as generate higher income on a sustainable basis. The One District, One Product project of UP government is a step in the right direction, in this direction. Similarly, the Jan Shikshan Sanstans are also engaged in such type of trainings for local people and improving their local art. One such example of Jan Shikshan Sanstan in Maharashtra can be given here. They train local people in Warli paintings, which is a local form of art in that region. Now, with proper training, these groups are able to sell their products online, either through Amazon or other sites. Each state in India has some special heritage site as well as some traditional art and craft varieties, may it be painting, weaving, woodwork, metalwork, or many such things. So the vocational training based on our rich cultural heritage will go a long way in preserving these treasures, along with creating employment for the local youth in a great manner. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Neela. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development provides a comprehensive framework for the creation of new and relevant TVET programs in many areas of strategic importance to India, such as water management and sanitation, but also clean energy and climate change. And there is perhaps nobody better to talk about this than my friend Shamal Majumdar, who served as the head of UNESCO Univoc International Center for TVET in Bonn, Germany, and was very instrumental in leading the greening agenda there. I still remember, Shamal, when I went to talk to you about the preparation of this report, must have been a year and a half ago. And I'm sure, like me, you're glad that we finally are able to launch the report today. Shamal, over to you. The sound, please.
Thank you very much, Eric. Congratulations to you, particularly because any work needs a good leader. You have proven to be a very good leader in 2020, when it is very difficult to work without virtually. You have achieved the entire team to produce this. So namaste from India. It is a very, for me, if you ask me, what is the uniqueness of this entire report, before I go into the specific recommendation, there are two things comes into mind. One, many speakers already spoken about that. It is very timely. Why? India has already taken the Smart Skill India program, which is already a mission. So that's why it will help in that directions. And also NEP has just published 4 months ago. So it is a complementary and supplementary role it will play. But one dimension we didn't talk about. It is a very relevant report. Why relevant? If you look any skill organization coming up with a report, you will see the report entirely emphasize on economic dimension. But this is a report, it's not just economic dimension, but it has social dimension, as you have already talked about, livelihood program, girls' education, rural, non-formal, all this dimension you have talked about social, and also environmental dimension. In that sense, you are pioneer in producing a report not overly biased on economic, which skill always report does. It has covered social and environmental dimension. With this, one of the things comes into mind. Then we thought about that when we are discussing in the editorial board meeting, that why not, which document is the best document which has covered economic, social, and environment? It is none other than SDG, Sustainable Development Goal. So it is the recommendation that TVET policy in India in future must be better aligned with SDG goal. Many people can say that we are already aligned with SDG goal, but you know, our firm belief is that if education is the key for development, technical, vocational education and training is the master key to unlock poverty, hunger, unemployment, and address climatic change. Therefore, education policy has to be aligned with entire sustainable development goal. 17 goals are there. Many people only thought goal number 4 is our education work. No, if you talk about no poverty, no hunger, good health, good education, good environment, you talk about decent work, you talk about clean energy. Can you imagine these all the sector will be accomplished without skill? Impossible. So therefore, we strongly believe that all this goal need skill. Without skilling, this will be only a dream. It never be a reality. When we talk about skill, you need green skill. Yes, this is a skill which really reduce the carbon footprint. That's why we use greening instead of green only. So greening is a process to the whole thing. Digital skill, you need heritage skill, you need hard skill, you need soft skill. So just see the gamut of the skill program is just narrowly not only economic skill you are talking about, you are talking of comprehensive skill. I'm very happy that India is progressing to this direction, but this report definitely will help India to get more clarity on that direction. So again, congratulations to you and entire team to come up with this report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shamal, and thank you for all the support you provided in the editorial board. COVID-19 has reduced the students' capacity to pay for their own training, among other problems, and innovative financing models are therefore needed to scale up skills development. At the same time, the burden on the government is increasing. So how do we create a balance? So to talk about this more in detail and to look at recommendation 8, which is to deploy innovative models of financing TVET, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Manish Kumar, MD and CEO of the National Skill Development Corporation. Over to you, Manish.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be part of this effort in introducing a document which is such high quality. In respect to the financing part and how that's evolving, I think a few things which I would like to state upfront is generally a lack of well-designed financial instruments when it comes to the bottom 10% of any society. Now, usually financial products and the financial plannings or particularly when it's market-based, is actually targeted towards the upper income bracket. And this one is, essentially the need is more towards the lower end. It's not that upper end doesn't need it. I think in the context of India, the lower end needs it far much more. We have seen, as expected, the government to take the initiative and the leadership on this. We had the STAR scheme, which had a particular way of delivering skills using finance from the government. But thereafter, when PMKVY came, and particularly PMKVY2, PMKVY2 in some sense is an impact investment. It's one of the classic impact investment where the upfront investment is actually made by the private sector. In this particular case, in case of PMKVY2, these were the training partners, and then followed up by measuring the performance by the ministry and NSDC supporting that. And eventually, based on that, releasing subsequent tranches. So you release the first tranche, the second tranche, and the third tranche. And therefore, it's a kind of instrument which was based on some level of performance and some level of impact that is being measured. But what's happened now, and I think I must thank British Asia Trust and the partners, which includes Michael Susan Dell Foundation, a lot of work done by Omidyar in designing that product. We have also received money from HSBC for that particular action, is essentially taking away this the whole risk business out from the private sector training partners and giving it to those who could handle it better. So in the new paradigm that we have done, coming up actually is fairly advanced now, is by McKinsey, and we are expecting few more. So each of them about 100 crore. They're smaller than what government does in general. I think it's a fantastic experiment because that's going to lead to more of such measures. Essentially, what's happening here would be that the risk is being borne by NSDC, the risk that we are going to perform at a certain level, and basis that performance, the money would be released back to NSDC. So if we perform very well, we don't lose any money at all. And in fact, we might gain some money. And we are not averse to taking that challenge. So there has been a bit of negotiation on what is that level of achievement that they expect out of us. And it's been a hard negotiation, but it seems to be going in the right direction because the objective is that the people who get skilled get job and stay in the job. So firstly, counseling part, where everybody takes the job that truly is their vocation. And secondly, when they go to a job, they stick to it. I think these are the two ends of it. The middle part was something which we had. So these are interesting times in that way. We expect to see more of such innovation. And I look forward to reading this report, and perhaps your report is going to lead to private sector creating more of such financial instrument, which is targeted towards the bottom 25% of India. So thank you very much for this timely report.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Manish, for your insightful intervention, and also our sincere gratitude for all the support to you and the team at NSDC for supporting the report with data and photographs. And for everyone, you can already see the report online. It has been, you can download it from our website along with other resources. Let's move on to recommendation 9. We have 10. We know that there's not enough capacity for TVET research in India today. So efforts need to be made to develop further research capacity by drawing on various models, including international models. And as our report suggests, continuous research to help accurate policy formulation and implementation is critical. And to take us through this recommendation, I would like to invite Dr. Vinita Sirohi, professor at the National Institute of Educational Planning and Administration, NIEPA.
Thank you so much. And I would like to first thank for giving me an opportunity to share my views on this momentous occasion of the virtual launch of the TVET report. And I also congratulate the UNESCO team for the efforts towards culminating the scholastic thoughts and ideas into a meaningful document at a time when it was much needed, as this area has been deliberated and discussed as a priority agenda in the current policy discourse. The present report has made some very far-reaching recommendations which will go a long way in improving the quality of TVET system as a whole. And one of the important recommendations is the proposition to adopt evidence-based research for policy making and for planning, implementing, and monitoring TVET programs. We see that there is overall dearth in the research in the area, and together there are so many gaps and methodological limitations which affirm the need for strengthening the evidence base. And evidence-based research is the thread that scientifically connects the policy making, planning, as well as the monitoring of the TVET programs. And it has been reiterated as being an essential enabler to make policy-oriented reforms and investments in TVET. In this era of educational accountability, although basing educational policy making on scientific evidence is a very good idea, its implementation and rigor is lacking. TVET research in India is very scarce, and there is hardly any capacity for TVET research. So a proper mechanism to enable this needs to be created by the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship and Ministry of Education, a research community of practice which may be a solution where all academic institutions and think tanks who work on TVET can come together. Given that now we have a number of universities and colleges that are engaged in the provision of TVET programs, there is enough of an academic community that can come forward to take this up. Now, regarding the evidence-based quality research, I would like to emphasize on a few aspects that are very important. First is related to the data and information that is required. So it's a multi-dimensional information and data that is required for TVET research. And there is the need for using the existing data in an integrated manner. So the focus is on gathering data from a variety of sources, analyzing, synthesizing the data, and interpreting and presenting it in a form that can be used for planning and policy development purposes. Another aspect, it relates to the dissemination of the results by the researchers, which should be in a manner that is understood by the general public, including the policymakers. Research results that remain within the realm of academia that cannot be understood and accessed when needed, greatly limiting their impact. In the multilingual international context, such type of dissemination, which can be readily accessed and understood, increases the likelihood that the researchers can build off of each other's work instead of squandering limited funds, repeating the same basic research in various countries. And of course, the sensitivity to cultural context is also quite relevant. The third aspect that is important in evidence-based quality research is the ability to assess the quality of evidence available, the reliability and validity of data, whether pulled from the internet, presented by the researchers, or offered by other stakeholders, is a fundamental requisite for informed policy making. Now, TVET research is directly related to the shaping of the transition from education to work. And there are several questions that need to be researched, which are important and which have immediate bearing, which the country will proceed with the integration of vocational education in schools and colleges. The questions relates to the erosion of different types of work and how TVET system would respond to it. The quality of education and didactic approaches that need to be established to develop competence among school and college students for lifelong learning. Then how vocational teachers in schools and colleges and trainers need to be educated and trained so that they can work as active agents to achieve quality in TVET. Then the emergence of the transnational labor markets, which necessitates the internationalization of occupational development and enable mobility of the Indians. There could be other systemic issues also, which could be researched, like the interaction between the TVET system and the employment system, the permeability between the general and the vocational education, the evaluation of various training programs, and tracking of students' life cycles, and so on. So it is strongly recommended that high quality research using careful data gathering and data analytics is needed in all aspects of TVET planning and delivery offered by all kinds of institutions across the country. A major issue is that there is zero accountability for poor outcomes among all the stakeholders who are responsible for implementing TVET programs. Therefore, it is critical that going forward policy implementations include provisions for continuous feedback gathering and leveraging of data to monitor progress, assess problems, and evaluate that works. NEPA is also where I am working, is also engaged in a number of activities in TVET research. We provide academic support in the area of TVET to national and international organizations by way of research, consultancy, organizing seminars and conferences. We have also organized very important skills symposium and international conferences, taken up research studies sponsored by UNESCO on skills and some other international organizations. And we have also recently proposed for a study on skill formation in India, including all the aspects, formal, informal, non-formal modes. And a very important initiative from our side is that we are also developing the capacity of our young MPhil PhD scholars to engage in areas of TVET in research. So reiterating the importance of vocational education and training, I must say, when India is forecast to become the world's biggest producer of school and higher education graduates, what will they do if they are not vocationally trained? So here the importance of vocational education and training comes in. And I must say that this report is likely to generate positive sentiments for the users, consumers of TVET programs. And it is hoped that this report will serve as a key resource for policymakers, practitioners, and stakeholders, and contribute to informed policy making and progress in TVET policy research and practice. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will move to the final recommendation of the report. They're all important, but this one has special significance because while it's seemingly trivial to emphasize better coordination, certainly the importance of bringing skills and education systems together is very important for the future growth of India. And to tell us more about this important issue, I would like to invite someone who has seen the practical challenges of interministerial coordination very closely and has advocated strongly for the integration of skills and education systems. Over to you, Dr. K.P. Krishnan, former Secretary of the Ministry of Skill Development Entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Eric, and good evening and greetings to all the assembled dignitaries, my fellow reviewers and UNESCO colleagues. Skilling is a shared responsibility in the Indian Constitution between the union government and the state governments. Very often, skill development programs are actually implemented, executed by the local governments, whether they be rural or urban local governments. So the first coordination that one needs to be mindful of is the vertical one between various levels of government. But the equally important and in practice, given the dominance of the role of the central government in skilling schemes in India today, is the horizontal coordination across ministries of government of India. Besides the very important reason that Eric mentioned, namely the increasingly felt need for education and skilling to go together, I think in the Indian context, in a bureaucratic sense, in a governmental sense, there are at least 4 good reasons for this robust interministerial coordination mechanism. Very briefly, TVT by definition has a strong domain content, and hence the relevant ministry becomes very important. Number 2, very often these are activities that are actually regulated by a sectoral regulator. For instance, the Directorate General of Civil Aviation is the regulator for a lot of the jobs in the civil aviation sector. So any skilling there, or in the area of nursing, for instance, nursing assistants eventually becoming regular regulated nurses would require coordination with the domain regulator. Number 3, the greater familiarity of the relevant ministry with market developments as well as international developments in the domain. And lastly, in the Indian context, plain and simple history. Skill development programs in India have largely been funded and driven by the 20-odd ministries that Eric mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation. Hence, for instance, the rural development skilling programs go back 20 years. The textile program goes back 15 years. Hence, the framework, the market-related recognition, the equivalence, etc., being done by skill development and strong domain inputs from the line ministries will be the way to go forward, besides the strong coordination required with education department. And I'm sure the State of the Education Report for India 2020 will be an important voice in pushing for this coordination. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Krishna, and also for your insights and guidance throughout the process of research and compilation of this report. We're coming to the end of the launch. It has been a long one, yes, but I think we needed to be able to outline all of these recommendations. The recorded program will be available in future on Facebook, also in case you want to access it or show it, share it with others. Again, the report itself is available on the UNESCO New Delhi website. You're also more than welcome to write to us if you wish to seek various documents related to this report. Unlike last year, we will probably not be able to launch it also regionally. We had done this with last year's report, but certainly we will continue together with all of the people assembled today and beyond them to promote the findings of the State of the Education Report. Our sincere hope is that it can indeed make an impact with policymakers. And in closing, I have thanked already members of the editorial board and all those present today, but I really want to thank again our team at UNESCO New Delhi, led by Omar Diop. Manish Joshi is also here somewhere very discreetly. They have worked literally night and day to be able to finish this report, worked very closely with the authors. So a great big thank you to all of you. Thank you very much. And this will conclude our program today. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody.